When I was a little boy, I loved going on hunting trips with my dad. Every Saturday, he would take me out into the woods, and I cherished those moments with him. Now that I am a dad myself, I wanted to pass down this tradition to my son, Andrew, who was 10 years old at the time. I decided it was the perfect age to introduce him to the world of hunting. I carefully selected our equipment, giving Andrew and myself Remington Model 798 sniper rifles. However, I carried his rifle until we reached our usual hunting spot. You see, there was a hidden deer hunting tower deeper in the woods, but I didn't think it would be the best first-time experience for Andrew. So, instead, I handed him the rifle once we were all set up. Before this trip, I had already taught Andrew the basics of firearms, so he wasn't completely inexperienced. I chose to stay put in one spot for our first outing. It would be easier for him, and I believed we could explore more advanced hunting methods in future sessions. Little did I know, this particular spot would require more waiting than usual. As we sat there, waiting patiently, I could sense Andrew getting bored. He started yawning and sighing, and it disappointed me to see him lose interest. I didn't want him to think that hunting was a boring sport. So, I packed up our things and decided to find a new location. Andrew seemed to perk up a bit with excitement when I told him we were moving. As soon as we started walking, we heard footsteps in the distance. I quickly put my arm in front of Andrew, signaling him to raise his gun. His eyes lit up with excitement as he pointed it in the direction of the sound. However, just as I was about to take a closer look, I spotted someone's head peering out from behind a tree. It caught me off guard, and I immediately pushed Andrew's gun down, feeling both disappointed and relieved that he hadn't shot. I gave him a quick apologetic wave, and the mysterious person disappeared back behind the tree. Something about his face seemed off-putting, but I couldn't quite figure out what it was. It was rare to see anyone so deep in the woods, and this person didn't look like a hunter. Just to be safe, I decided to steer Andrew in the opposite direction. We continued our hunt, but still, there was no sign of any deer. Curiosity got the best of Andrew, and he asked me about the man and who I thought he was. I honestly didn't know, and I didn't think it was wise for us to get closer. I didn't want to lie to my son, so I told him the truth. A few minutes later, Andrew started complaining that he was hungry, and truth be told, my stomach was growling too. We stopped and unpacked our snacks, hoping to satisfy our hunger. I couldn't help but feel disappointed that nothing exciting had happened by now. As I took a bite of my sandwich, I suddenly heard footsteps again in the distance. Andrew heard it too, and he immediately picked up his rifle and pointed it towards the sound. My heart dropped, fearing the worst, as I saw the same man peering out from behind another tree. Once again, I lowered Andrew's gun, sensing his discomfort. It was me, his father, who should have protected him from any danger. I made a quick decision. I told him to wait there while I walked over to confront the man. Halfway there, doubt and fear started creeping into my mind. What was I doing? My son was right over there, and I was putting myself in potential danger. I turned around and hurried back to Andrew, telling him it was time to go. If you ever find yourself in the woods with your child and suspect that someone is following you, all you want to do is get out of there as fast as possible. We weren't running, but we were walking briskly back to the road. I was mentally on edge, waiting for any sound that might indicate someone following us. When I finally heard a twig snap or a leaf crunch from behind, I nudged Andrew to go ahead while I angrily turned around to confront the man. I wanted to protect my son, no matter what. As I stormed towards the tree where the man had been hiding, I noticed he moved back out of sight. Then, I heard a thud, as if something had just been dropped to the ground. I approached the tree cautiously, my gun loaded in my hand. I didn't say a word. I don't know why, but all I did was slowly creep up to the tree. And when I got there, it felt like everything around me collapsed. All I could see was a head, laying face first on the ground. There was nobody, just a severed head. I didn't dare look up or around the tree to see who had left it there. I just sprinted back to Andrew and told him to run. We made it back home safely within 5 minutes, and I made sure we weren't followed. However, I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed up, keeping watch to ensure the safety of my family. The next day, I learned from my wife that 2 local hunters had gone missing. I immediately called the police and reported what I had experienced. For the sake of my family's safety, I decided to take a break from hunting for a few months. I needed time to play it safe and ensure that the danger had passed. It baffled me how this person could have killed 2 hunters who were obviously armed. But eventually, I resumed hunting with my son, always keeping a watchful eye and taking every precaution necessary to protect him. So recently, my friends Lily, Jake, and Max were constantly talking about this game they were playing called Fortnite. I wasn't really interested in it at first, but after a while, they convinced me to give it a go. I have to say, it was actually pretty enjoyable. Even though we were all in our own homes, we were able to play with each other online. It was a really great way to hang out with my friends, and I can definitely understand why it's become so popular. We formed a team and decided to embark on a quest together. Lily was the bravest and most skillful player among us. She was our leader and always knew the best strategies to overcome any obstacle. Jake was the second best player, with lightning-fast reflexes and an uncanny ability to find hidden treasures. Max, on the other hand, was the quiet one in our group. He only spoke when he needed assistance or was in trouble. As we began our adventure, Lily and Jake took turns explaining the game's rules and controls to me. They were patient and kind, guiding me through the virtual world. Meanwhile, we chatted and laughed, making the whole experience enjoyable. Little did I know that our lighthearted journey would soon take a terrifying turn. During one of our missions, something strange happened. There was a sudden silence that hung in the air for what felt like an eternity. Even the sounds of the virtual world seemed to disappear. Then, out of nowhere, Lily's character froze in place, refusing to move. We urged her to keep going, but her character remained motionless. Confusion filled our voices as we tried to figure out what was happening. Suddenly, eerie noises echoed through the game. I could hear background sounds coming from Lily's microphone as if something was happening in her room. The 4 of us fell into an uneasy silence, our hearts pounding in our chests. Then, a blood-curdling scream erupted from Lily's microphone, piercing through the virtual world and into our souls. It was a scream filled with fear and desperation, unlike anything we had ever heard. Goosebumps covered our bodies as the chilling sound filled the airwaves. Without wasting a second, I decided to call Lily immediately. I dialed her number repeatedly, hoping she would pick up and assure us that everything was okay. But to my dismay, she didn't answer. Fear began to creep into my heart as I realized something was seriously wrong. Driven by concern, I rushed to Lily's house, which was just a short distance away. When I arrived, there were no cars in the driveway, but the front door was wide open, casting a dim light onto the porch. Worriedly, I stepped inside, calling out Lily's name with a trembling voice. To my surprise, there was no response. I cautiously explored the house, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the empty rooms. The lights were on, illuminating the hallway and casting eerie shadows on the walls. Fear gnawed at my every step as I ascended the stairs, following the faint sound of Lily's voice. As I reached the top floor, the voice grew clearer, leading me to Lily's bedroom. My heart raced as I opened the door, revealing a scene that would forever haunt my dreams. There, huddled under the bed, was Lily, her eyes wide with terror. I urged her to come out from under the bed, promising that I was there to protect her. She trembled as she slowly crawled out, tears streaming down her face. With a shaky voice, she told me about the horror she had encountered. Lily had felt something tapping the underside of her bed during our game. Curiosity got the better of her, and she peered beneath, only to come face to face with a grown man hiding under her bed. Panic consumed her, and she dropped her headset, screaming as she backed into the corner. The man emerged from under the bed, his presence suffocating her with fear. Then, without a word, he walked out of the room, disappearing into the night. Overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation, Lily immediately called the police, unsure if the intruder was still lurking in her house. We waited anxiously, and soon, 2 police officers arrived. A male officer ventured inside to investigate, while a female officer stayed with us outside, attentively noting down every detail Lily shared. After what felt like an eternity, the police left, assuring us that they would do everything they could to find the intruder. Determined to support Lily, I stayed overnight at her house, trying my best to comfort her during this terrifying time. We played Fortnite together, but our hearts were heavy with the memory of what had transpired. In our cozy little house on Maple Street, something strange and mysterious happened to my little brother, Andrew. It all started when Emma, discovered a peculiar drawing tucked away in his room. The drawing was made by Andrew, who was only 6 years old at the time. It was a picture he had made, depicting our family gathered around the dinner table. The drawing was fascinating, but there was something peculiar about it. The drawing had me, Mom, Dad, and Andrew eating dinner. All 4 of us were there. But the strange thing was that there was an extra person seated behind the table who was not a part of our family. A man, drawn in all black, with curly reddish-brown hair. I couldn't help but wonder who this mysterious figure was. Curiosity piqued, I showed the drawing to our parents, wondering who this mysterious man could be. When I asked Andrew about him, he simply shrugged his shoulders, saying he wasn't allowed to tell. This sparked my suspicion that maybe Andrew had an imaginary friend or was pretending to see ghosts. I shared my concerns with our parents, and they didn't seem too worried. They believed it was just a product of Andrew's vivid imagination. As the days went by, I took on the responsibility of watching Andrew while our parents were away. One day, while I was sitting in my room, I heard Andrew talking in his own room. Curiosity overwhelmed me, and I quietly made my way to his door. Opening it slightly, I saw Andrew playing with his toy cars on the floor, seemingly engaged in conversation. When I asked if he was talking to someone, he looked at me and shrugged, his face pouting. That's when something caught my eye, green apple-flavored candies scattered on the floor of Andrew's room. I had never seen our mother buy such candies before. I asked Andrew where he got them, but he ignored me, returning to his play. I decided to take the candies away, which upset him, making him yell and demand them back. I made a mental note to ask our parents about the strange candies when they returned home. Later that evening, our parents arrived, and I wasted no time asking them about the candies. They couldn't recall buying them, which deepened our concern. The random appearance of these candies in Andrew's room troubled us, especially since Andrew remained tight-lipped about where he got them from. Despite their efforts to coax him into answering, Andrew continued to pout, shrug, and ignore their questions. In response, our father grounded Andrew, forbidding him from leaving his room until he revealed the truth. Worried that someone might be inside the house, we searched every nook and cranny, from the closets to under the bed. However, we found no sign of an intruder. Still, the mystery persisted. That night, as darkness blanketed the house, I decided to position myself near my bedroom door, determined to listen closely for any signs of Andrew talking again. It wasn't long before I heard his voice, long past his bedtime. Startled, I jumped up and ran to his room, hastily opening the door. To my astonishment, I saw Andrew standing near his open window, engaged in conversation with a man who seemed on the verge of climbing into the room. Filled with terror, I screamed for our mom and dad, and the man outside quickly fled. Andrew burst into tears as I relayed the shocking events to our parents. They wasted no time and immediately called the police. Initially, Andrew remained reluctant to speak, but with the police present, he finally opened up. Andrew told us that his friend had instructed him not to tell anyone about him or that he couldn't come and play anymore. When asked for the friend's name and age, Andrew replied that he didn't know. He explained that they would play together, and the friend would bring snacks and candies for him. They had first met when the man stopped on his bike in front of our house and offered Andrew candy. Andrew pointed out which bedroom window was his, and that's when this strange occurrence began. The revelation left us all stunned and terrified. Our once peaceful home now felt shrouded in darkness and danger. The police intensified their investigation, trying to uncover the identity of the mysterious man who had approached my innocent little brother. Days turned into weeks, and the uncertainty lingered. Our family took extra precautions, ensuring our home was secure, and our parents watched over Andrew like hawks. The police kept a close eye on our house as well, hoping to catch the intruder if he dared to return. Time passed, and the mysterious man never reappeared. Eventually, life began to regain some semblance of normalcy. We moved forward, but the memory of that eerie encounter remained etched in our minds forever. To this day, we don't know who that man was or what his intentions were. The incident taught us to be vigilant and aware of the dangers that may lurk in unexpected places. My name is Sarah. When I was just a young kid of 14, something strange happened to me during the summer of 2014. You see, back then, I was totally obsessed with this cool app called Snapchat. I used it all the time to chat and share funny pictures with my friends. There was this one friend of mine, let's call him Sam, who was my Snapchat buddy. We were always on each other's best friends lists, and we would send snaps to each other regularly. Now, one night, I noticed that Sam hadn't snapped me in a while. I thought, that's weird. So, I decided to send him a funny picture to get his attention. But he didn't open it for a long time. I started to get a little worried, so I sent him another silly snap of myself, hoping to make him laugh. Finally, after what felt like forever, I saw that he had opened them. But there was something strange. He didn't respond at all. Not even a single word. Confused and concerned, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to bother him too much, but I couldn't help but wonder if I had done something to upset him. So, I mustered up the courage and decided to send him a text message asking what was up. Within a minute, I saw that he had read my message, but there was still no response. I felt a mix of frustration and worry. What was going on with him? Unable to shake off the uneasiness, I put my phone down and tried to distract myself with something else. I started chatting with another friend through text, and somehow, Sam's name came up in our conversation. We talked about how he had lost his phone. That's when an idea struck me. I wanted to be sure if he was still without his phone, so I asked my friend to confirm it. And guess what? He said that Sam was indeed phoneless. Without wasting any time, I dialed Sam's house phone number. His dad answered, and I asked if I could speak with Sam. Sure enough, Sam himself confirmed that he was still missing his phone. My heart sank. Then, I told him about the strange situation with his Snapchat and the texts being read by someone else. Sam freaked out and urgently asked me to come over to his place. To avoid any further trouble, I told Sam that I would message the person who had his phone and ask them to return it. So, I started sending a bunch of texts to that unknown person, desperately requesting them to give it back. To my disappointment, I saw that every single message was marked as read, but I didn't receive any reply. It was frustrating and worrying. I felt like I was hitting a wall. But then, out of nowhere, I received a Snapchat notification from Sam's phone. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. What I saw sent shivers down my spine. It was a picture of a really creepy-looking guy with a huge, unsettling smile on his face. The caption read, "Coming over." My blood ran cold. How did this person get Sam's phone, and why is he sending me such a creepy message? I called Sam once again to make sure he didn't have our addresses on his phone. Unfortunately, he told me that the person with his phone had both of our addresses. I was scared, but I knew I had to be brave. Suddenly, I received a text from the guy while I was on the phone with Sam. The text said, "You're good looking." I felt a shiver run down my spine. I couldn't control my panic anymore. I called Sam again, desperately hoping he had some way to track his phone. But he didn't have the Find My iPhone feature enabled. It felt like a dead end. That night, as I lay in bed, I suddenly woke up in the middle of the night. It was around 3 a.m., and something felt off. I squinted my eyes in the darkness, and to my horror, I noticed a faint light in my room. As I sat up, rubbing my eyes, I realized that it was unusually hot in my bedroom, despite the air conditioning being on. Confused and frightened, I turned my gaze toward the window. That's when it happened. A blinding white flash of light filled the room, and I felt an excruciating pain in my eyes as they struggled to adjust to the bright flash. I gasped, trying to open my eyes wider, and that's when I saw him. Half of his body was leaning into my room, holding a camera in his hands. I screamed at the top of my lungs, terrified beyond belief. It was the most horrifying moment of my life. I could see his face, the same face I had seen in that creepy Snapchat picture. He struggled to squeeze himself back out of the window, but he managed to escape just before my parents rushed into the room, awakened by my screams. We wasted no time. We immediately called the police and reported the terrifying incident. They sprang into action, tracking the phone that was in the possession of that creepy man. To our relief, they found him in a house just 2 miles away and promptly arrested him. The nightmare was finally over. Sam got his phone back, and I found solace in knowing that the creep who had invaded my privacy and scared me so badly was now behind bars. It was a huge relief for both of us. When I was a young child, I heard a captivating story from a family friend named Lisa. She and my father are of the same age. She told me a tale that stuck with me throughout the years, and it always comes to mind whenever someone talks about hitchhiking. It's a story filled with suspense and an important life lesson that I'll never forget. So, Lisa, who was a kind-hearted woman, lived in a small town back in the early 1980s. One day, she decided to drive into the city, which was about a 2-hour journey. As she drove along, she noticed a man walking by the side of the road. He had his arm out, thumb pointing up, just like you see in the movies when people want a ride. Curious and caring, Lisa pulled over and offered him help. The man, who called himself Jack, was polite but a bit shy when he asked for a lift into the city. Lisa smiled warmly and opened the passenger door, allowing Jack to toss his bag into the back seat. He fastened his seatbelt, and they set off on their journey. During the drive, Lisa and Jack engaged in pleasant conversation. They talked about their friends, the latest news, and other happy small talk topics. Lisa felt at ease, and they seemed to get along well. In fact, they were getting along so well that Lisa decided to buy. Jack joined Lisa for dinner at a pit stop they reached, which was a little over halfway to the city. However, when Lisa paid for the meal, she noticed that Jack seemed flustered and awkward. It turned out that they had discussed money earlier, and Jack had mentioned how he was struggling financially, which is why he resorted to hitchhiking. Eventually, he reluctantly accepted Lisa's kind gesture, and they continued their journey. As soon as they arrived in the city, Jack expressed his heartfelt gratitude for the ride and the meal. He asked Lisa if he could have her phone number so he could keep in touch and maybe catch up someday. Thrilled by the prospect of maintaining their newfound friendship, Lisa wrote down her number for Jack, and they said their goodbyes. Now, here's the part of the story that always sent shivers down my spine. A week later, Lisa received a phone call from Jack. He didn't allow her to speak a single word after the initial greeting. He urgently told her that she should thank God for her good upbringing because, when he first got into her car, he had planned to harm her. Jack had intended to rape and murder her once they reached that pit stop. He had planned to steal her car and dispose of her body in a ditch further down the road. But something changed. You see, during their time together, Lisa had treated Jack with such kindness and generosity. She had shown him compassion, even buying him dinner with a genuine smile on her face. That unexpected act of kindness touched something deep within Jack's heart. He couldn't bring himself to carry out his sinister plan. He realized that he couldn't harm such a genuinely nice lady. As the conversation continued, Jack's final words on the phone were, "Please, Lisa, please never, ever pick up another hitchhiker." And with that, he hung up. Lisa never heard from him again. When she tried to call the number back, she discovered it was from a payphone. This story taught me a valuable lesson that I'll always remember: never, ever pick up a hitchhiker. When I was a young college student, I decided to try out an app called Tinder during my winter break. Tinder is a dating app and all my friends were talking about it, and I thought, why not give it a shot? It was the year 2015, and everyone seemed to be excited about this new way of meeting people. I remember it was a chilly evening, around 8 or 9 p.m. on a Thursday, which apparently was the best time to use the Tinder app. I downloaded it onto my phone, feeling a mix of excitement and curiosity. I thought, maybe this is how I'll find a girlfriend. After all, I didn't have one at the time and didn't have much else going on. Setting up my profile became my mission for the night. I spent a good 10 minutes scrolling through my photo albums, carefully selecting 4 flattering pictures of myself. I hoped they would catch people's attention and make them swipe right. Now, here's the thing, I wasn't exactly an expert in writing witty and funny bios like guys are supposed to do. So, I kept it simple and wrote a few things about myself. I mentioned that I was 6 feet tall, played basketball at my college, and loved working out. With my profile ready, I embarked on a swiping spree, swiping right on pretty much everyone, just to see how many people would swipe me back. To be honest, I expected to get some matches quickly. I mean, I always thought of myself as good looking, so it was a bit of a blow to my self-esteem when I didn't get a single match right away. I started doubting myself, wondering why nobody seemed interested. I waited and waited for that little notification to pop up on my screen, signaling a match. But it felt like forever, and my patience was wearing thin. I even considered deleting the Tinder app to save myself from disappointment. But just when I was about to give up, it happened, a single vibration from my phone, accompanied by a message that read, "Congratulations. You have a new match." I was overly excited as I opened the app to see who had matched with me. And there she was, the most gorgeous girl I had seen on the app. Her photos showed her having fun, with friends, and at parties. She seemed adventurous and full of life. I couldn't believe my luck. She was 20 years old, just like me, and she went to Syracuse University. We started chatting through the app's messaging feature. It began with a simple hey from both of us, followed by a smiley face. I wanted to impress her, so I took a minute to think of something clever to say. Eventually, I mentioned that I had a friend in the same sorority as her, trying to find a connection. To my surprise, she responded quickly, saying, "OMG, that's so cool," with another smiley face. I felt a surge of confidence as we continued our conversation. She called me cute and asked what I was doing that night. I told her I was just watching a movie called Fantastic Four, trying to sound interesting. And guess what? She replied saying, "OMG, no way. I'm watching it too. You should come over, and we can watch it together." She even added a winky face at the end. My heart skipped a beat. It seemed like things were going so well. Excitedly, I asked for her number so we could plan the evening better. She gave it to me without hesitation. I waited for a moment, wanting to play it cool and not appear desperate, and then I texted her. But as soon as I sent the message, I noticed something strange. The text message bubble appeared, indicating that this person wasn't using iMessage, the usual messaging app on iPhones. Instead, it was a different app that allowed for fake phone numbers. I thought it was odd but shrugged it off. Maybe she had a reason for using that app. Nonetheless, I texted her a simple hey once again, expecting a quick response. And she did reply, saying, "Hey, come now." She also pasted an address, asking me to go around the back because the front door was loud. Now, I'm not the type to jump into things without thinking. And something didn't feel right about the situation. I wondered if her parents were home or if something else was going on. So, I texted her back, asking, "Are your parents home or something?" But this time, she didn't answer. It made me feel uneasy, and a little creeped out. Nevertheless, I gathered my courage and decided to go and meet her. I let my mom know that I was going out, and she wished me luck. The address she had given me was in a quieter part of town. As I drove towards it, I noticed the houses were more spread out, with a large piece of land across the street surrounded by trees. It looked like a place where rainwater collected. The whole area had an eerie vibe, but I pushed my concerns aside, thinking it might just be my imagination playing tricks on me. Finally, I arrived at the house. It had a decent location, somewhat secluded. I parked my car and glanced at the driveway, where I noticed 2 cars. That struck me as odd. I texted her, letting her know that I had arrived. She replied with a simple smiley emoji and asked me to go around the back, mentioning that the front door made a lot of noise. My suspicion grew stronger, and I couldn't help but ask, "Was that you at the window?" To my surprise, she didn't reply. It felt like something was off. I felt a chill run down my spine, but my curiosity got the better of me. I cautiously walked around the house, taking slow steps. As I passed the window, I saw it, a brief glimpse of an opening in the blinds. Someone was holding them up, but as soon as they noticed me, the blinds fell back into place. Panic started creeping in, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. So, I texted her once again, hoping for an explanation. But silence greeted me this time. My nerves were getting the better of me as I continued walking towards the backyard. I thought I heard faint sounds like a chair scraping against concrete. It was nerve-wracking, to say the least. I reached the corner of the house, just before turning into the backyard. I stood there, frozen, contemplating what to do next. Summoning all my courage, I slowly poked my head around the corner, peeking into the backyard. It appeared empty, and a wave of relief washed over me. Encouraged by this, I made my way to the back door, which was an old sliding glass door. I could partially see inside the house, and that's when I noticed something unsettling. No lights were on. The house was enveloped in darkness. Alarm bells rang in my head, warning me that something wasn't right. I hesitated for a moment, contemplating my next move. Then, a thought struck me. I should call her. It would be the first time we'd talk directly, and maybe that would clear up any doubts or fears I had. But as I dialed her number, a startling revelation appeared on the screen: text now or audio call. It meant she had been using a fake phone number all along. My heart raced as I realized the gravity of the situation. And just when I thought things couldn't get any scarier, I heard it, a faint ringtone coming from behind the glass door. Fear washed over me as I peered closer into the darkened house. There, next to the door, I could see the glow of a phone screen. It confirmed my suspicions. Someone was hiding there, just inches away from me. I didn't think twice. I knew I had to get out of there, and fast. Without hesitation, I retraced my steps, careful not to be seen through the glass. As soon as I was out of view, I broke into a full sprint towards my car. Panic fueled my every step. Finally, I reached the safety of my car. I locked the doors and took a moment to catch my breath. It was then that I realized I hadn't checked my texts throughout this terrifying ordeal. I anxiously unlocked my phone, only to find a flurry of messages waiting for me. Most of them were variations of "Where'd you go?" and "Why'd you leave?" But the last 3 messages chilled me to the bone. The first of the last 3 messages revealed the truth. I'm not actually a 20-year-old girl, but I'm sure you figured that out by now. The second message said, "No laws were broken. LOL. Good luck." And the final one, the most haunting of all, stated, "I know exactly what you look like, and I have your number." Fear consumed me as I realized the danger I had narrowly escaped. I quickly blocked the fake number and reported and unmatched the person on the app. It felt like a scene straight out of a nightmare. Thankfully, I never received any suspicious calls or texts after that horrifying experience. I counted my blessings and thanked my lucky stars. From that day forward, I decided to use dating apps just for fun, never again making an effort to meet someone in person.